The failure of multiculturalism. Islamic agitation is on the rise. The experiment of mass importing cultures that hate the host country has failed. Despite the ceaseless deluge of propaganda designed to make us believe otherwise, those of us who are immune to the delusion, due either to temperament or personal experience of its downfalls, are able to see the clear truth. Multiculturalism has failed. It is still failing. It will continue to fail. Multiculturalism means that you, the native who inherited this land, must make yourself small. Don't antagonize the newcomers with innocuous displays of patriotism or celebration of native culture. If your inherited behaviours and customs cause offence, they must be abolished. If your new neighbours feel at all unwelcome, you are at fault and you must change your ways immediately. Don't be a bigot, be inclusive. Diversity is our strength. Just accept it already. Why are you resisting, racist? Multiculturalism is a death cult. If the blood of our children must be sacrificed at the altar of diversity, it is not at all worth any of the supposed benefits it brings. Those forcing multiculturalism on us will not stop until they are made to stop. I have seen more videos than I care to recall, showing native kids being beaten and or humiliated by foreign thugs. Hardly a week goes by without a machete-wielding migrant going on a violent rampage in Sadiq Khan's London. The true extent of the horror that Pakistani grooming gangs have inflicted on our daughters over the decades is not, and probably never will be, entirely known. Party politics is becoming increasingly Islamified. See George Galloway's election, as well as various local councillors recently elected, seemingly running solely on a campaign of support for Gazans.
We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
How can the enemy within be beaten? Do we possess the energy required to fight off the coalition of traitorous politicians, bloodthirsty Islamists, native-hating foreigners, and demented leftists intent on finally burying this country? I'm broadly unconvinced, but I'll never give up. My children, and my nephews and nieces, will inherit whatever is left of what we can preserve for them. Without resolute and swift action, that inheritance will be a lifetime of subjugation under forces which despise them. Our future generations will view us with scorn for our cowardice. Natives need to shake off their malaise and act. Think for a moment. Imagine how much energy is wasted on surrogate activities that could be harnessed to effect real change if only the English people weren't so utterly demoralised and apathetic. We don't have bread and circuses, we have beer and football. The extent of the demoralisation is truly staggering. There is no national spirit in this country anymore, no pride, no confidence, no courage. It need not be this way. All of the pain inflicted on us is a choice made by traitorous politicians of all stripes, who are consistent only in their single-minded push to consciously worsen our country, through their appeasement of hostile foreign residents, and through their refusal to stop our country being overrun by immigrants, both legal and illegal. It's malice, not incompetence. If it was simple incompetence, why would the government fund nudge units and run propaganda campaigns to gaslight us into apathy? Look at the state of this. This is a nation so utterly devoid of energy, so worn down by decades of abuse and psychological warfare, that its people cannot even bring themselves to feel the righteous outrage called for by the violent deaths of children at the hands of Islamists, let alone to express that anger. The English really don't seem to realise just how dangerous it is to continue importing Mohammedans en masse. Every time there is a conflict in the Middle East, and especially so for conflicts in which either we or the US are directly or indirectly involved, there will be demonstrations, protests and riots on English streets in English towns and cities. Our Muslim population is already over 6.5%. Look at the misery that has been caused by their barbarism. Terror attacks, intimidation of MPs, rampant and widespread grooming gangs. When our Mohammedan population reaches 10%, we're in trouble. Directly in proportion as their number as a percentage of the population rises, Islamic-inspired trouble will become more prevalent, calls for Sharia will become more frequent, intimidation of public figures will become more brazen. We are sleepwalking in an increasingly dangerous direction. In 2001, the Muslim population of England and Wales stood at 1.5 million. By the time of the 2011 census, that had increased by 74% to over 2.6 million. In 2021, it was over 3.8 million. That is 6.7% of the total population of England. The Muslim population may well treble by 2050. Without some form of reversal, this number will simply keep rising, and more pain, as well as more Islamic political agitation, will ensue. Groups such as the Muslim Vote and Muslim Brotherhood are becoming increasingly brazen in their demands. This enrichment is a choice which our politicians have made for us, an imposition to which we did not consent, but under which we are suffering. We were never even consulted. Its continuance is a conscious political decision made on the part of the elites, especially so since vocal opposition has been frequently expressed for decades, particularly by the working class who bear the brunt of its negative consequences. All politicians are traitors, all of them. While Labour are openly contemptuous of the general public, the Tories are in fact worse because they pretend to care about us while only ramping up the destruction of our nation. This country was at a far better state in 2009 after 12 years of Labour rule than it is now. Despite this clear fact, people in our sphere are still advocating a lesser of two evils or better the devil you know approach to the forthcoming general election. It may have been Tony Blair who laid down the blueprints for the decimation of Britain and who set us down that path, but the Tories have implemented those plans with a rapidity that Blair could probably have never imagined. Even ostensible wins for our side are immediately subverted by the Tories. After the shock victory of the Brexit campaign, it did not take long for our leaders to begin reframing the situation to undermine our wishes. We did not vote for Brexit in order to reinvent ourselves as global Britain. We did so because the European Union was a bloated behemoth of bureaucrats set on stripping our sovereignty from us. Even now, it is our commitments with the ECHR that prevent us from undertaking any action that would make a substantive difference to the illegal immigration problem. A sizable part of the reason for support for Brexit was due to the damage wrought on British towns year on year by mass immigration. Brexit was intended, in part, to be a rejection of the metropolitan liberalism of the modern age, and many had voted leave with the hope that it would engender a steep reduction in immigration numbers. As punishment for voting the wrong way, Boris Johnson and the Tory party at large decided to quadruple non-EU immigration in just a couple of years. The Tories are containment traitors. Reform are useless invertebrates. It brings me no joy to say it, but those pinning their hopes on Richard Tice and his revolving door of short-term candidates will find themselves sorely disappointed before long. I do not believe this situation is one which can be solved at the ballot box, at least as it stands. Our politicians have consistently betrayed us for literally decades at this point. It's malice, not incompetence. If it were simple incompetence, you'd expect them to accidentally do something beneficial for us now and then. We need to clear them out, sooner rather than later. Will the English ever wake up? The betrayal at the hands of the political establishment is almost unending. The contempt shown by their action and inaction in the face of public outcry palpable. If Islam at some future point takes state power into its own hands, England as we know it will go. I do not intend to sound melodramatic. I'm neither inciting hatred nor violence. I'm stating the facts of the situation that our political class has allowed to come about, the situation it facilitated in fact. Swift, sensible, organised action is required if meaningful change is to be effected before we reach the point of no return.